Hi everyone, welcome to This Moment and the Diamond Mothering, presented by Caroline and Lisa. A very warm welcome everyone. We're here to illuminate the core of the feminine force. And myself and Lisa are going to have a little talk about a lead on from what we talked about last time, which was last Friday. And we were saying about value and how important it is to value ourselves in the world, especially during these times. And just before the show, we were talking about again, like how do you actually start to kind of value yourself and ground yourself in these uncertain times? Because especially when we're parents and when we have children looking on and they're not too sure, especially with, everything that's happened with COVID and the war and, uncertain times when it comes to climate change and everything. And there's so much changing and there's so much, kind of seems to be like we were talking about the changing times and the redesign, and how then do we start to have practices and how do we start to ground ourselves as parents so that we can be like these pillars of strength for the generation who are watching. So I'd love to have your reflection on that, Lisa, and see what you could share with people.
I think this is it's so timely, isn't it? Because we're all feeling it. Nobody can escape the impact of the uncertainty that is in our external world right now. And I keep feeling myself. It's like if we don't know or don't have time to be with ourselves and to ground ourselves and even have a practice for ourselves to come back to an inner stability, then life can be really frightening. It would be really frightening with no inner stability and the external world being all over the place and it's so scattered. And even with, because I've certainly been feeling it, even with a practice, I've gone through times of like feeling really fragmented and really scattered, because I do believe it's a time of great transformation. We're being called to actually come back into our true state so that we can take up our rightful roles on this planet and do what we're here to do, because each of us has a unique place to play and a unique role to play in the way the whole works. So there is great transformation. But how do we deal with that? Like as parents, coming into this, I want to feel like I'm a little bit together so that I can hold my household together, right? And it's like, oh, and like it's not, there's no perfect fix. There's no like, do this and you'll be fixed straight away, because sometimes that works. Sometimes you can do certain things and you can reground yourself and you can feel good and you can come back into your center. Other times there may be an emotional process that's happening that you just have to sort of go with and keep doing your practices, So for me, one of the greatest things that always helps me is talking to my friends, like actually reaching out and having these conversations, because sometimes I can't see what's going on with myself. In fact, typically that's always the case, right? It's like your friends can actually see, right? They give you the feedback and you go, oh yeah, why couldn't I see that? So being able to have a conversation about how you're feeling and share that connection, because when you feel connected to someone, doesn't that make you feel more grounded? Like even that, Carolyn, do you feel that like when you're connected, it's like, oh, there's a safety in that?
Yeah, well, actually, it's amazing because I'm thinking about how human beings actually evolve through relationships. Like the whole of our existence is all about relationships. So it's all about relationship to ourselves, relationship to the people around us, relationship to our environment. And we have to, it's like, the eternity symbol. And I have that the poem again, I talk about the holy relationship. So it's like when we, so the fine art of communication then is a great tool for that, because when we learn to listen and allow somebody to express themselves in their truth, then there's something, this is the magic, that something is released. They can hear themselves speak about what has been in their mind, or kind of in this, like, you talked about before, like the dynamic is like the closed circle, and it kind of breaks the dynamic when you hear yourself speaking from that kind of pattern behavior, and then it's kind of like, oh my God, and you start to hear the answer, you feel the answer coming when you've after been able to release it, because you're kind of, it's like releasing your emotions that way, aren't you? You're really being truthful about your emotions, you're being honest, and you're being open in a safe space with a friend that is non-judgmental and just has your best interest at heart and wants to kind of help you move through, because they don't have the answers either, but it's the process of that kind of communication and that, like, beautiful kind of, relationship between the two. Because like that, the presence is the third dimension, that is the magic. That is what actually evolves us. It's not me or you, it's what happens between that, between both of us in that relationship. The actual space between the relationship is presence, that actually makes the transformation happen.
Oh, that's so beautifully put, because it's true. It's the presence. It's us being in that connection and allowing the presence to evolve us. Often, like I used to, when I was in a different type of relationship dynamic with people, it was more about trying to fix them and trying to make things right and trying to find a solution. So when I went outwards and connected with others, there was all this stuff in the way of my connection with them. There was my desire for them to be different. There was my desire for me to be fixed, for them to rescue me, or for them to help me deal with whatever I'm like. All of that stuff, which actually had everything to do with my emotional world and nothing to do with them, would get in the way of that connection. And what I feel and what I've noticed in my own growth is that the more I connect to who I am, and that's more of a, like, I'm in this center, and when I go out, I'm not going out to get my inner needs met, but I'm going out to connect and to actually just be there for people and to connect in a healthy way, where I've already addressed my emotions. So I have the emotional needs that I'm dealing with, so I'm not expecting them to do that for me. And so there's nothing in the way of the connection that I have with them. I can be more present, which allows them to turn up exactly how they are, which allows the presence of life itself to be in the relationship, and that is what evolves and heals us. And that, for me, is like, that was massive. So and that happened for me because I started to look at my emotional needs and feeling my feelings, and even that helps me be grounded now. Like, if I'm running away from my feelings and trying to get really busy and ignoring it, it gets worse. So for me, and I've just been through a stage like about a week and a half ago where I just felt really fragmented. I felt like all of me had just broken apart into pieces and it was laying all over the ground. I'm like, I just feel so like not together. Like, I feel so surreal because I'm just all fragmented. And I thought, well, I've just got to be with this. I've just got to, talk about it, write about it, and just be with this feeling of feeling like I'm not myself, feeling like something's happening on the inside of me. And it's sort of, as I just kept being with it for a couple of days and sharing with my friends, I came to this understanding that I was being almost redesigned, but it was like me trying to put myself better back together, which is sort of what I was thinking about doing in the beginning. It's like, if I put myself back together, I'm only going to get more of the same, right? Because I'm going to be building myself up again from the same dynamics, the same patterns, the same beliefs. So I actually challenged myself to sit in it and see what unfolded. How am I going to be rebuilt? How am I going to be redesigned? What's going to come into this space that I'm allowing, because I'm not trying to put myself back together. I'm not trying to get my shit together. I'm just trying to do what I can do and just feel what I can feel, which is not necessarily that comfortable, but understanding that I was in a process, right? So
absolutely.
it worked, but it was challenging.
Yeah, that's it. Because it's kind of you're letting go of control again, because
Mm.
it's always about letting go. As much as we feel that I've let go of everything. There's so much that we haven't let go of, and there's a new level all the time, that I suppose we're being transformed by design. It's a it's a natural process, but like that, I suppose being in tune with your emotions and your feelings and your sensing is really helpful. That's the only way to do it because you have to trust. But like it's like that feeling though, the feeling of the future we were talking about earlier on, that when you do clear whatever it was that needed to be kind of these ideas we had about ourselves that needed to be dissolved because you're actually growing into a new version of yourself, you start you get this lovely new feeling coming then, and that's like we were talking about being pushed or being pulled. It's much
Mm.
nicer to be pulled than being pushed. So
Yeah.
when you when you sit and you consciously reflect and go into that deep contemplative reflection, that's when you can consciously be designed, and you have that you're consciously designing. Like life is actually the designer.
Mm.
It's not so much us. It's just that we're allowing the purposes that life has for us to appear in us, kind of
Mm.
thing. And it's much nicer than, and then you're kind of going towards it. You're being pulled towards it. It's like a magnetism, that you can feel your way, um, instead of ignoring it and suppressing your emotions and pushing everything down, and then you're going to be pushed because you
Yeah.
need an update. You have to, it's like time. You haven't been in time because time is presence. So if
Yes.
you haven't been in time, then you've been in the past. So then it needs to push you forward into the present. So
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's really true because mostly we aren't present, mostly because of our unaddressed emotion and not even knowing how to deal with the emotion we feel. We often are living in the past, going over and over and over again, or we're projecting into the future. So naturally, we have to be pushed into the present. That makes a lot of sense, right? And that can be very painful because we've got to learn things really quickly and be pushed into this state that emotionally feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's also with
So
our kids as well, because if we haven't been present with them, we haven't actually been watching their updates. We feel like they're you're still treating like they're 10 when they're actually 13, 14. We
mm,
haven't been updating our version
mm,
of who they are because we haven't been present with them. We
yes,
haven't been with them on the process. So then there's a bit of a catch up to do. It's
yeah,
just it happens with all relationships. So
mm,
it's trying to be, that's why presence is important because it's not, if you're not awake with people, it is going to be more difficult.
yeah. More
Yeah,
conflict, isn't it?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's very much the same. Very much one of the biggest reasons with teenagers when they become teenagers,
yes,
because we need to emerge with them as a parent. If we aren't emerging with our children and being in the process with them, which often as a parent we may not be because we may want to be controlling or protecting them or keeping them safe. We want all these things to happen, but actually, it's when we get into the process with them and
mm,
allow it to unfold and work with what's happening with them that there's a lot less conflict
yeah,
because there doesn't need to be conflict. We're in the process with them,
yeah.
So,
And we're all very much in the process together now, as well,
yeah,
especially with global challenges that we have. So
yeah,
we're all being put into the present together. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that's why it's transferred, that's transformation, to
yeah.
happen. Yeah.
It's so true. And I think that just circling back on what you were saying before, it's like my value is so connected to my capacity to trust, which is so connected to my groundedness and my ability to be present in this moment. So if you think of it all as being part of this one thing, the more I can be in this moment and be grounded in this moment and feel my feelings and go with them and do whatever I need to address those feelings,
Mm.
then the more grounded I feel, the more in my body I feel, the more present I feel, the more I value myself and the
Mm.
more I trust myself because I'm here for me. Like I've actually turned up for me today. And so I start to build trust in myself. And then, of course, I value myself more because I'm showing that I value myself. I'm demonstrating that in my every moment. I am of value because I'm showing up for me and I'm being here for me and I'm allowing myself to feel and I'm addressing that and being in this process of my life right now. It's so interconnected.
Absolutely. And that word, I'd say all of those explanations of how you might feel I would sum up as calling confidence. You know, get your
Yeah.
confidence, you get the
Yeah.
confidence about yourself, which
Yes.
is a beautiful feeling of being stable and solid in yourself, and
Yes.
not looking for
Yeah.
exterior validation,
No. And I think that's exactly what we need right now,
Mhm.
right? That's the one thing that's not going to go anywhere. Once we've built it, we've got it. It's here. It's not
Yeah,
going anywhere.
yeah. And that's what our kids
Yeah.
need too, to see us
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that's so true. Well,
mhm.
I think this was a juicy conversation, Caroline. Um,
Yeah.
and I think we'll call it there for today, just a short one. We look forward to seeing you again on Thursday when we have an interview talking about the feminine force. Thank you so much for joining us today, whether you're watching us live or on the replay. We love to have your company. Sending you love for a beautiful day.
Thanks, everybody. See you again. Bye.
Bye.